So just a little follow-up here. The last step with this block in, I made that darker, and I think I probably went too dark, but I think that's fine. It's actually dry now. And so I want to show you what dry brushing does. So dry brushing, you put just a little bit of paint on your brush and you wipe most of it off. That's why it's called dry brush. And this works much better with a light color on top of a dark, so I want to lighten that. So I'm going to do this dry brush technique. So I'm going to get a gray. Mixing here, might be too dark. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, now I'm going to wipe some of that off. I'm lightly going to go over this. So really what happens then is I'm altering the value, but I can still see the value underneath kind of showing through here. And it just gives it a little more visual interest that way. In fact, I might even lighten that slightly more. So you get kind of a visual texture happening this way. And again, it's kind of an optical effect where you see that darker color shining through a little bit more. And it kind of makes it somewhat glow. All right, so I think that's pretty good. So I still have that really strong contrast right here. Now I also want to go ahead and just put straight white on this plane here. So now I'm finally going to use my other brush. So a good clean brush to get this straight white, because I don't want this contaminated at all. And I can cover up my charcoal marks there as well. So, I could always still alter this more if I want. Maybe there's a little bit of variation within this plane of the cube, which there is slightly. I could always add a little, just touch of gray here and there. But as I was doing this, I noticed also that there's a little bit of a drawing problem here. The bottom of this side is a different angle than the top, which might not be a problem if it's going the other way. In other words, these lines are moving away from each other as they move back into space, and that's the opposite of what happens with linear perspective. They should converge. So I can see that I kind of missed the mark on that, so I need to tilt this up a little bit more. So I'll start that by just drawing some gray on the tabletop there. A very light gray. And I just want to cut that in more like so. I'll fill that in a little bit. Oops. Clean my brush. I want to lighten that a bit more on the tabletop. It's not quite that dark. I'll leave a little bit of a shadow right there underneath it. And just kind of blend this around. All right, then I also want to go ahead, and I had mentioned that little shadow line previously. I'm going to try to add that using a dark gray and a very small brush. And I'm also thinning this just a little bit. Here's something else when you're doing detail work and you want to steady your hand. They make something for this called a maul stick, but even without a maul stick, one thing you can do is use your arm basically as a maul stick and rest your painting hand on that, on your arm. All right, so I can get a finer line that way. Blend it out a little bit. And again, by doing that, it really kind of gives this thing some weight. I mean, I see it just a little bit of a line on here. Just a little bit at a time. And the line I see does not necessarily go across the whole thing. So that's enough just to give it some weight.